Incoming administration. President-elect Joe Biden is just hours from being sworn into office. We take a look at President Donald Trump's last full day at the White House. Plus, the security for tomorrow's inauguration. Fight for the unborn. New developments in how the annual March for Life in Washington, D.C. will look amid the coronavirus pandemic. And incomparable news, what Archbishop Georg Gainswein is saying about a relic some believe is related to the death and resurrection of Christ. On EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. President-elect Joe Biden shares his agenda as he prepares to take the office. One of the key things on his to-do list is to help millions of people living in the nation without legal status become U.S. citizens. Pro-life advocates are also keeping a very close eye on his upcoming announcements. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Tracy, good evening. As President Donald Trump prepares to leave the White House, he issued a proclamation, National Sanctity of Human Life Day. It's this Friday, January 22nd. And part of it reads, every human life is a gift to the world, whether born or unborn, young or old, healthy or sick. Every person is made in the holy image of God. Meanwhile, a new administration is about to move in with a brand new agenda.
President-elect Joe Biden, leaving Delaware for Washington, D.C., shared this message with supporters.
And so it's deeply personal that our next journey to Washington starts here, a place that defines the very best of who we are as Americans.
One of his top goals, congressional approval of a proposed $1.9 trillion coronavirus plan.
We risk a longer, more painful recession now and longer-term scarring of the economy later.
Janet Yellen is the president-elect's pick to run the Treasury Department. She says they understand the nation's debt burden, but right now,
with interest rates at historic lows, the smartest thing we can do is act big.
Also on President-elect Joe Biden's list, a $2 trillion climate package, a path to citizenship for millions without legal status, rejoining the World Health Organization, the Paris Climate Accord, and the U.S.-Iran nuclear deal. Meanwhile, more goodbyes from the outgoing administration. President Donald Trump is reportedly considering 100 pardons before he leaves office, although he is not expected to give one to himself. Vice President Mike Pence also arrived at the White House this morning for his final full day of work. On the schedule, his last coronavirus task force meeting. And First Lady Melania Trump said serving in her role was the honor of a lifetime. She offered this encouragement to a divided nation.
To focus on what unites us, to raise above what divides us, to always choose love over hatred, peace over violence, and others before yourself.
Now, before President-elect Joe Biden is inaugurated tomorrow, he'll attend Mass at St. Matthew's Cathedral, and joining him will be the four top leaders from Congress. And before President Trump boards Air Force One for Florida tomorrow, he's reportedly planning a big red carpet send-off at Joint Base Andrews, complete with a military band and a 21-gun salute. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
The completed Field of Flags display on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. was lit up by powerful beacons yesterday. The display was organized by the Presidential Inaugural Committee to mark the swearing-in of President-elect Joe Biden. It features over 191,000 U.S. flags and 56 pillars of light symbolizing every U.S. state and territory. Washington, D.C. has become a fortress of roadblocks and barricades in preparation for tomorrow's presidential inauguration. Security officials are working to avoid more violence in the wake of the January 6th Capitol riot. Correspondent Mark Irons reports. Mark?
Tracy, large areas of the Capitol are sealed off to everyone except authorized personnel, and approximately 25,000 National Guard troops are in position to keep order for tomorrow's inauguration. Monday's inauguration parade dress rehearsal trying to signal confidence that Wednesday's ceremonies will go off without a hitch. Even after an earlier false alarm that led to an evacuation of the Capitol out of an abundance of caution during rehearsals. The cause was a fire at a homeless encampment about a mile away. Law enforcement officials said the fire was not believed to be a threat to the inauguration. To counter any threat of an insider attack during the inauguration, U.S. defense officials pushed the FBI to vet all of the 25,000 National Guard troops. And today, at least a dozen U.S. Army National Guard members have been removed after they were found to have ties to fringe right group militias. Democratic Congressman Steve Cohen says he sees reasons to be concerned.
They're probably not more than 25% of the people that are there protecting us who voted for Biden. The other 75% are in the class that would be the large class of folks who might want to do something.
But GOP leader Mitch McConnell is confident it will go smoothly. The Senate Majority Leader met with Minority Leader Chuck Schumer today.
The way the Senate works, it will take cooperation from our Republican colleagues.
And as the outgoing president faces the prospect of an impeachment trial in the Senate, Leader Mitch McConnell signaled his thoughts over President Trump's role in this month's Capitol riot.
The mob was fed lies. They were provoked by the president and other powerful people.
And behind me at the Capitol today, senators are already beginning the hearings to vet nominees to the new administration. And tomorrow, after she takes her oath, Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to swear in the three newest Democratic senators, and those include her replacement from California, Alex Padilla, and from Georgia, both John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock. In Washington, Mark Irons, EWTN News Nightly.
And joining us now is former U.S. Member of Congress Dennis Ross, Director of the American Center for Political Leadership at Southeastern University. Representative Ross, thank you so much for joining us today. First off, what's your take on what we're seeing in D.C. right now in preparation of tomorrow's inauguration?
Well, it's highly unusual for it to be this way for an inauguration. I've been to a couple of them, and it's usually, regardless of who's being inaugurated, I was at Obama's and also Trump's. There's a lot of fanfare. There's a lot of celebration. There's a lot of crowds. This one, unfortunately, is a dark cloud that's covering the inauguration because of the events that have transpired in the last 2 weeks. I think it'll go well. I think it'll go without any violence, with any incidents of any nature. But we as a nation need to move on. We need to start reconciling, and as the First Lady said today, we need to rally around what unites us. And I'm hopeful that this new incoming president, President Biden, will do that.
As far as the inauguration tomorrow, what do you think we can expect to see? We do know, of course, it's going to take on a much different look than we've seen in the past.
Oh, it'll be so much different. There won't be anybody in the mall. There'll be a lot of flags, which is an impressive view if you haven't seen it already. I know a lot of your viewers have. You will see a limited parade, a virtual parade, if you will. You'll see some celebration that'll be virtual, singing and of the guests that are there. Most of it will be virtual. The members of Congress and the Senate will be there in person predominantly. What you will see is what has always been the benefit of this nation, and that is the peaceful transfer of power. And I'm hopeful that that will gain some sense of confidence in the American people that we can rebuild and move on from here and become a better nation.
I know that you worked on President Donald Trump's transition team 4 years ago. Can you take us through that process and maybe talk a little bit about how this transition process has been different?
Well, it's interesting. When I was on the Trump transition team, there was only a handful of us that were originally, Trump supporters before he got elected. Afterwards, there was, rooms full of Trump supporters in Congress, and then you had to sort out who was really going to be there for the good of the nation or who was there just to follow coattails. I'm sure Biden will have the same thing. Biden has factions within his party, and he's got to placate some of them in order to be able to govern. So you'll see a transition that doesn't go all left or all to the middle. It'll be somewhere in between, in my opinion, in order to placate all those that are there. Remember, when we were in Congress, we had the majority. We had 237 members that were Republican. We only needed 218 votes, but we could never get 218 votes to get things done, such as health care reform and immigration reform. Biden and Schumer and Pelosi are going to have their hands full trying to keep their extremes in check. So this transition is going to take a while. Plus, I think you'll see with such a close vote in the Senate, it's going to be difficult, absent the filibuster rule being abrogated, to get much done in terms of appointments. And watch Senator Joe Manchin. He's the one that wants to make sure the filibuster rule stays around.
Okay, before I let you go, we don't have a lot of time left, but wondering, what do you think is next for President Trump? We do know that once he leaves the White House tomorrow, he plans to go to Florida, your state. What do you think will be his next act? Do you think he'll stay in politics?
I don't think he can ever get out of it. And his base, even though he emboldened them and some of them did some violently awful things 2 weeks ago, his record, but for the tarnish of what happened 2 weeks ago, really has been pretty good in terms of our international relations, in terms of our economy, in terms of the rights for the unborn. He was the most aggressive president in that regard. If he will focus on the positives of his legacy of the 4 years he was there, he can help rebuild a Republican Party. Do I see him running again? I do not see him running again. Will he not do it? I don't know. He's one of the most unpredictable people in the world. I know that for a fact. But I think that he has an opportunity to help reconcile this nation. He did a lot of good for this nation, and he needs to focus and accentuate that.
Okay, we're going to leave it right there. Thank you so much. Former Congressman Dennis Ross, we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
President Donald Trump announced in an executive order yesterday that a garden will be built to, quote, reflect the awesome splendor of our country's timeless exceptionalism. Among the statues to be honored in the Garden of American Heroes include Billy Graham, Alexander Hamilton, and Aretha Franklin. It will also feature prominent Catholics, including St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, St. John Newman, St. Junipero Serra, and St. Catherine Drexel. The garden is a response to the vandalism of statues from last summer. A 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck northwest Argentina overnight, and it was felt in the capital of neighboring Chile. Authorities in Argentina say 2 children and an adult were hospitalized just after the quake hit around midnight. Christian leaders in Nigeria are calling on the government to protect clergy after the body of a priest was found over the weekend. Father John Gubakon was kidnapped by armed men on Friday night. He was traveling with his brother and had just left from visiting their mother in McCurdy. The kidnappers reportedly first demanded around $70,000. His car was also found, but his brother remains missing. Australian Archbishop Philip Wilson died unexpectedly on Sunday. He was the emeritus Archbishop of Adelaide. He had health problems in recent years, including cancer. However, the Archdiocese says his death was unexpected. Archbishop Philip Wilson was 70 years old. After last week's report on abuses at homes for unwed mothers in Ireland, a Catholic archbishop says religious orders should not be scapegoated for the failures. Some of the homes were run by churches. Archbishop Eamon Martin also says the homes were expected to intervene when society banished unwed mothers and their unborn children. And you can read more about the comments at our sister publication, CatholicNewsAgency.com. Orthodox Christians celebrate the Feast of the Epiphany today. In Russia, Patriarch Kirill celebrated a service commemorating the baptism of Christ in the Jordan River. And some of the faithful took a dip themselves despite the freezing temperatures, including Russian President Vladimir Putin. Coming up, analysis of a new study saying the abortion rate in the United States is on the rise. As reported last week, the March for Life is going virtual this year. This is video right here from the march back in 2019. This year, the live stream will start at 11 a.m. Eastern on Friday, January 29th. EWTN will also be providing live coverage. Organizers say a small group of pro-life leaders will still march in D.C., but are asking everyone else to stay home and instead to take part virtually. And you can read more about the changes, plus a look at how other pro-life events are changing this year by going to the National Catholic Register at ncregister.com. Multiple reports are indicating the abortion rate increased in the United States in 2018, the year with the most complete available data. This includes a dramatic rise in the number of chemical abortions. Joining us now is Michael New, Research Associate at the Catholic University of America. Michael, welcome back. Always good to see you. So talk to us about this rise in abortions in 2018 and what spurred it.
There are a couple of things. First is public policy. Some states have enacted policies to make their abortion laws more permissive. Illinois in 2018 started covering elective abortions through their state Medicaid program. And not surprisingly, the abortion rate in Illinois went up by 9% in 2018. We've also seen a big increase in chemical abortions. Chemical abortions have been rising pretty steadily since the FDA approved RU486 back in 2000. But in the past few years, we've seen a really dramatic increase. Between 2015 and 2018, the share of abortions that were chemical abortions increased from 25% to 40%. In 2018, the number of chemical abortions increased by over 10%. So you've seen a really big increase in the number of chemical abortions, and I think that's that has a lot to do with the overall increase in the number of abortions that took place in 2018.
Yeah, Mike, I want to talk a little bit more about that. Why do you think pro-lifers should be particularly concerned with chemical abortions and the increase of them?
I think for a couple of reasons. First off, we've seen a number of abortion facilities close. There's 6 states that only have 1 abortion facility. And one way that people who support legal abortion are trying to expand access to abortion is by kind of promoting chemical abortions. That's one thing. Secondly, chemical abortions are dangerous. They're obviously lethal to the unborn child, but they pose greater health risks to the mother as well. I mean, there's many studies, including a very comprehensive study that looked at data from California's Medicaid program that showed complication rates are much higher with chemical abortions. So for those reasons, pro-lifers should be concerned.
We know that NBC News is actually reporting that President-elect Joe Biden is expected to quickly overturn pro-life initiatives from the Trump administration. What are your thoughts on that, and what do you think we can expect to see?
I think certainly you're going to see President Biden overturn some of the Trump administration's policies. He's certainly going to reverse the Mexico City policy. Mexico City policy is a very good pro-life policy. It prevents U.S. foreign aid money from going to NGOs that promote or perform abortion. That's going to be very likely reversed probably within the first days, if not the first day, of the Biden administration. I think what's also concerning is I think the Biden administration is going to make an effort to repeal the Hyde Amendment. The Hyde Amendment is part of an appropriations bill that's passed every year. It prevents federal taxpayer dollars from funding elective abortions through the Medicaid program. There's very broad consensus that the Hyde Amendment saves tens of thousands of lives every year. So the margins the Democrats have in Congress are fairly slim. I don't think that it's a done deal that the Hyde Amendment will be repealed, but I think it's certainly something pro-lifers need to be aware of and need to push back on.
We earlier mentioned that the March for Life is going to be mostly virtual this year. Michael, I'd like to quickly get your thoughts on that.
Well, it's disappointing, but certainly understandable considering the pandemic. People's health is certainly important. I think it's also important to remember that the March for Life is a great event that certainly raises the salience and raises the importance of sanctity of life issues. But there's all kinds of ways to build a culture of life. I'm very heartened to hear that 40 Days for Life and Live Action are encouraging people to pray outside of abortion clinics on January 29th. Here in Washington, D.C., we will have a gathering outside the D.C. Planned Parenthood. I think we're going to start at 9:30 in the morning to pray and hear some speakers, hear some presentations. So I encourage your viewers to attend that. And I would just encourage everyone to do their best to build a culture of life this coming year through educational efforts, through sidewalk counseling, through prayer. And I hope that we can all return to Washington, D.C., January of 2022 for what will hopefully be a bigger and better March for Life.
Yeah, I think we're all hoping for that, too. Thank you so much, Michael, for your analysis. We really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
The former national director of the Pro-Life Action League died yesterday, and in a tweet, the group says the Pro-Life Action League is grieved to report the passing away of our founder, Joe Schiedler, the godfather of pro-life activism, adding Joe was surrounded by the family which he was so proud. May he rest in peace. Up next, new developments in an embezzlement case at the Vatican. Pope Francis says Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream of harmony and equality for all people remains as relevant as ever. In remarks yesterday, the Holy Father also praised the civil rights icon's message of nonviolence. Yesterday was Martin Luther King Jr. Day here in the United States. Well, the Vatican has dropped the extradition request for an Italian woman accused of embezzlement. On Monday, the Vatican said it no longer was seeking to detain a 39-year-old businesswoman, therefore removing the extradition process, but says their independent investigation will continue. Joining us now with more is EWTN News Rome correspondent Colm Flynn. Colm, good to see you. So tell us, what is this trial all about?
Good evening, Tracy. Well, Cecilia Moragna is accused of misappropriating Vatican funds. She received payments of more than 500,000 euros, that's around $600,000, from the Vatican's Secretariat of State. These payments were made in 2018 through a company that she had registered in Slovenia. Now, Italian media are reporting that Ms. Moragna used the funds, which were intended for humanitarian purposes, for personal expenses, including luxury hotels and designer label handbags. Now, Ms. Moragna has confirmed that she did receive the payments, but claims that these were legitimate payments for work that she carried out as a security consultant and strategist for the Secretariat of State. Now, as for the hotels and the handbags, well, Tracy, Ms. Moragna insists that these were expensive gifts that she bought for others, used to create what she called a cooperative relationship. On October the 13th, the Vatican issued a warrant for her arrest and she was held in custody. And October the 30th, the courts decided to release her from jail, provided that she presented herself to the local police station daily.
Colm, can you tell us a little bit more about her connection to the Vatican?
Well, the payments were made to Ms. Moragna from the Secretariat of State in the Vatican, and it has been reported that these payments were made by Cardinal Angelo Becciu, who worked in the Secretariat of State at the time. Ms. Moragna claims that she first reached out to Cardinal Becciu in 2015, expressing her concerns about security at Vatican embassies, and it is believed that they have been collaborating ever since. Of course, Cardinal Becciu has since resigned from his curial position and gave up his rights as a cardinal, reportedly in connection with multiple financial scandals. And of course, he has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing.
Colm, any idea how long this trial is expected to last?
Well, Tracy, the Vatican had lodged an application to Italian authorities to have her extradited to Vatican City, where she would undergo trial under Vatican powers. That was something that Italian courts were considering. They were weighing up whether they thought that she would get a fair and thorough hearing in the Vatican's judicial system. However, as of yesterday, the Vatican withdrew its extradition application, so her case will remain in the hands of the Italian judicial system. Tracy?
Okay, we will leave it right there. Thank you so much. Colm Flynn, EWTN Newsroom correspondent. Thank you again, Colm.
Thank you, Tracy.
And finally tonight, the personal secretary of Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI says he believes the holy face of Monte Pello is authentic.
Il Messia.
Archbishop Georg Gainswein spoke during his homily Sunday at the shrine in southern Italy that contains what some believe is the veil of Veronica. Others say the cloth is not authentic, but Archbishop Gainswein says it conveys the incomparable news of Christ's resurrection. He also says that it was used in the Middle Ages to bring healing to the sick, and in this pandemic, it could bring healing to all of us as well. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.